Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Kuf Yud Daled in Beit Yisrael. Now, yesterday we saw that when you are, again, we're talking about a case where you lent money to a poor person, and when you came to collect it, let's say it was a 6-month deal, he didn't have the money, so you entrusted Bezdin to go and collect it for you. We had a machlokas yesterday whether the Bezdin can go into his house and collect it, or the Bezdin has to wait outside together with you in order to collect it. Shmuel said even the Shliach Bezdin cannot go in. Others said, and other brises, other times said that that he can even go, the Shliach Bezdin can go into his house to collect it, but you yourself are never allowed to go in. But then what happens after Bezdin has taken that pledge, after you've given you're given the collateral? So according to Shimon Gamliel says that you only have to give it back to him. The pasuk says, if it's a pillow, you have to give him back to him at night. If it's day clothes, you have to give it to him back during the day. We said the pasuk said that you can't take items involving food preparation. You cannot take it all. Although we'll see food itself may be able to be taken, but items involving food preparation, you cannot take it all. However, other items like personal items that he may use. We talked about a machresha, which is really like a sort of a comb or a scraper, things that he needs during the day, you have to give back to him the day, things at night. That's only, we said, for, according to Shimon Gamliel, for 30 days. After 30 days, Shimon Gamliel says you can sell it. Now, Shimon Gamliel says you could sell it after that time. Okay, when you sell it, though, do you have to make an arrangement to give him something, that he should have something, that look at a situation, don't leave him destitute or not? So Shimon Gamliel says you sell it after 30 days, and then maybe you make an arrangement or not. That's the question we had in our Gemara. Do you make an arrangement for him or not? We said, Kaderosh Masadrin, just like when a person makes an erech into the base of Mikdash, and he can't afford to give the whole erech because that's a fixed amount in the Torah, you make an accommodation for him. In other words, he gets like what we call tuition assistance. He gets some assistance. Do you make assistance for him here? So yesterday's Gemara said, yeah, just like we do by Erech, and we also do it by Chov, and he gets his assistance. Now, which means, now this is according to Shimon Gamliel, that you only return it to him for 30 days, and afterwards you give him assistance, possibly. If you hold it, we give him assistance. But from today's Gemara, we'll see in the Rashi, in today's Gemara, we'll see that the Tanakama says that you return it to him forever. Now, this is about returning the pillow at night, let's say, and his day garments during the day. That's not just for 30. Shimon Gamliel says for 30 days, and afterwards you may sell it. But according to the Tanakama's mashma, that it may say to Mal Yosef, if he didn't, you have to give it back to him forever. In other words, before you even make that accommodation, you have to give him back his things. So our issue is according to Shimon Gamliel that you sell it after 30 days, and you don't have to give it back to him anymore. So do you make an accommodation for him or not? That's what we said. According to Shimon Gamliel, we asked this question. So the answer according to Shimon Gamliel that says you only return for 30 days, afterwards you sell it. So according to him, our question is, do you make an arrangement for him or not? Yesterday's Gemara's mashma that it was. Today we're going to see this question raised anew. From the top of the page, the second line. Does a Baal Chov, do you make an arrangement for him? Meaning, you give him some assistance, even though you don't take back all the money that he owes you. You have to look at his situation. What's the deal? And how do you know by erech when we do that? Erech in the pasuk says, if he is too poor from the amount that you've assessed him for, if he says, I give the assessment of my wife to the base of Mikdash erech, my wife or my child or whatever is depending on the age and the sex of the person, that's how much the Torah outlines how much you have to give. And it says, meaning from your estimation, make him live. Like who? Make sure that he survives. So that's the drasha by Erech, and the Gemara in Erech says that. So the question is, there it says in here it says if your brother is poor and you have to lend him money, right? That's the parsha that we're dealing with. The pasuk says, let's see, in Perek Daled. Perek of Dalet in Dvarim, it says, that's what we're talking about, that's part of the pasuk. And it says, in Shmos, it says there the pasuk says Ki yamoch achicha, if he is poor. So we darshan yimoch poor yimoch and umachu from erkecha gzeira shava. So that's the question. Do we darshan the gzeira shava or not? Do you make an arrangement, make an assistance for the borrower if he can't afford to give you back all the money? Do you leave him some money? Or not? Olo or not? Toshma. So this is apparent. This is apparently where the kasha is clearly according to Shmuel, who says that after 30 days you sell it off and you don't have to return to him anymore. But the Tanakama says that you give him back his items as he needs, and that's also a kind of a sidur. In other words, the Torah says that if you take a pledge from him via the court, right, after he can't pay it back, after the 6 months is over, he can't pay it back, and you take a pledge from him, you have to give him his pillow back at night and his clothes during the day. You help him out. You make an arrangement for him. You give him his assistance. Shmuel says that's only for 30 days. Afterwards, you must sell it off and keep the money. But do you still make some arrangement? That's our discussion here now. Yesterday, the Gemara said, yes, you make an arrangement for him. You make an assistance for him. Today, we're going to see different opinions. Do you make assistance for him or not? But according to the Tanakama, who doesn't say you sell it after 30 days, he says you always have to give it back to him until he pays you back the loan, until he can get out of his mess, pay you back the loan. You have to give him back his pledge. The pillow, you give him back at night, and the clothing during the day forever. That's smash from the Tanakama. So now we're going to try to prove this question. Do you make this Gzeira Shava or not? Toshma. The Shalach Rabin sent the Agrasan a letter. I asked this very question. Do you make an arrangement for a poor person when you've taken a collateral from him, even after the 30 days? If you sell that you sell it, do you still make an arrangement for him? I've asked this question. They didn't answer me this question. However, I was able to deduce the answer from another question. The Shayla there was a question there that was raised this way. In other words, the question that I asked directly, I didn't get an answer to. But however, there was a question asked in the Beis Medrash. This question, not Erichin. Not Erichin. Erichin is I give the Erich of this person to the Beis Medrash. So depending on the age and the sex of the person, that's how much you have to give. Here he just says, I'm giving $100 to the Bedek Abayis, and he doesn't have the $100. She said, do you make an arrangement? Do you give him assistance also and say, well, listen, he could only afford $40, not $100. What do you do? Rabbi Yaakov said that's how the question was raised. And we see from the answer, Rabbi Yaakov Mishmei de Barpada, Rabbi Yomi Mishmei de Ilfa Amr, they say it's a Kal V'chomer Balchov. Listen to this Kal V'chomer. Ma Balchov Shemachzirin, Manach by a Balchov, that we return his items, let's say his pillow, right? We return to him his pillow, Ein Mesatrin, but we don't make an arrangement for him afterwards, right? When the loan is paid off or when we sell off the items, we don't make a sitter for him. So you see, Balchov doesn't make a sitter. Hegdish, she'ein machzirin. Hegdish, there is no person gives hegdish. You don't say he gives this item that you give it back to him if he's poor, etc. You don't give him back his pillow. If he gave his pillow to the base of Mikdash, and it didn't shem sadin, so you don't make a sitter. So here's you see from the answer from Malach Balchov, which you give back. The Torah says you have to give him back his pillow, but still you don't make an arrangement for him if he's poor at the end of the day. So you see from this, so Kal V'chomer Hegdish, you're also not Masader. But you see from his answer, Balchov doesn't make a sitter, which is not like we said yesterday. Yesterday's Gemara said, Kederach, Elem Kederach Shemasadrim Be'erachin Kach Masadrim B'Balchov. That's what we said yesterday. Here we say Balchov. We don't. That's this opinion. Rabbi Yochanan's answer to that question was about Hegdish. Again, there's three issues that we're dealing with allowance. Erachin, definitely yes. That's learned out of the pasuk. Hachio Meir Kecha. Hegdish we're asking about. And Balchov, we have machlokas about. Yesterday we said you do make a sitter, you do make an arrangement for him. Here we said ein mesadrim. Rabbi Yochanan neder be'ergecha ksiv. Ma erechim mesadrim, just like erechim mesadrim. Av hegdish marison. Neder is a neder you give to the base of mikdash something. So here also, just like erechim, because there's neder be'erkecha. There's a hekesh between neder and be'erkecha. Neder base of mikdash and erkecha. Just like erechim mesadrim, av hegdish mesadrim. The idach, the one who says that what? That you don't make these rabbis who said Yaakov made a potter who say you don't make a sitter for hegdish. What do they do with nederbercha? So that's to teach me that it's judged, it's measured, it's assessed according to its significance, its importance. Meaning, just by erichin, it's judged, it's assessed according to its importance. I'll explain that in a second. What do we mean by that? That if a person says, I'm going to give the heart or the brain or the liver of this person, that's how much I want to give to the base of Mikdash, you have to give the whole person because it's a vital organ. But if a person says, I want to give the erichin of the leg of this person, there's no erichin for a leg. The erichin is only a person's 50 shekels, 30 shekels, 20 shekels, 5 shekels. That's enough person. By a nedava or a neder, when you give some base of English, where I'm not giving the value of that person. I'm giving whatever I want to give. I can give this, I can give that, I can give the value of this animal to the base of Mikdash. Okay, so if you say I'm giving the value of the heart or the liver or the brain of the animal, so then you have to give the whole animal because it's judged according to its importance. But if I give the leg of an animal, or let's say the leg of a person, I want to give the leg of this person. I have a person over here. I want to give the value of his leg to the base of Mikdash. There is a value to the leg because an eved that's sold with 2 legs has one value. If he's sold with 1 leg, he has less of a value. Obviously, he can't work as hard. So there is a value there. That's what we mean over here. Neder be'erkecha, just like by erichin, we judge according to the erich. It's only if you give a vital organ, you give the whole body. If you don't give a vital organ, you're not giving the whole body. The same thing by nedarim. The difference is by erichin, there is no erichin for a leg or for a hand or for some unvital part of a person. But by neder, you can give the value. There is a value to a person. There is a value. It's assessed in a court. If you knock off somebody's hand, you're assessed what is the hand worth during his lifetime. So that's what we compare Hegdish to erichin for. So now the Gemara asks. Now the Gemara is asking its own kasha. We have so far a machlokas by Sidur, right? We said that yesterday. We said that there is a Sidur for balchol, and now we ask the question: do you learn out Sidur from Micha from erichin or not? And we said apparently not. So now the Gemara says maybe we should make a Sidur Kavachomer from erichin. Listen, not as a Xavier Shavah, but have a Kavachomer. Uma erichin she'en machzirin misadrin marach erichin. You don't give back anything. If you give it's erich the person to the base of Mikdash, you don't give him back anything for 30 days or whatever. There's nothing to give back. Marach she'en machzirin misadrin. You do make a Sidur there. That's learned down to the pasuk Achiyom Yerkecha. Bachov shemachzirin einadin shemsan bachov. Where you do give it back. Bachov, you have to give it back, but give him back his pillow. Certainly you should make a Sidur. Amakra, the pasuk says when you want to Xavier Shavah, doesn't work. Why? Because the pasuk says machu hu merkacha hu v'la who where do you make a Sidur? Who only because it's learned out from who hachiyeh hu merkacha only the erichin and not the bachol. The one who says what that you don't darshan it that way. What does he do with that drasha? If you don't learn that way, in other words, if you learn that what you do learn out bachol from erichin, as we said before. Who are we speaking about? We're speaking about the Tanakam of our Mishnah, right? Because we said in the Mishnah that Rav Shimon says you return it after 30 days, you sell it off, and that's it. And you collect your money, and the question is according to Tanakama, you always have to give him stuff back. So that effectively, you always have a sitter. Rashi says in the first of the wide lines in Rashi, how do you know he owes Masadrin? The Mishnah didn't say it beferish, but it says the Tani imes ein a machzir liyorsha. If he dies, you don't have to give it back. Hello, but to him, machzirin, you have to return it forever. So in a way, machzirin is a kind of Masadrin. We were clearing, according to Shmuel, that you sell it. All right, so you're not returning it anymore after 30 days. Is there cedar or not? But it's mashma Tanakama that you always return it. That's a kind of cedar right there. So that's what Rashi's telling us. Rashi says, "Ve'idach the Tanakama who holds that there is cedar. What does he do with? He doesn't darshan machu merkachahu v'lo bachov. He goes bachov. There is cedar, just like we said in yesterday's Gemara on Amid Beis that the kishem samsan berachin kach masadrin the bachov. Let's say the Xer Shavah, Micha. So the Tanakama holds of that. Yesterday's Gemara on base holds of that. Here we have an opinion that it doesn't hold of that. But what is the one who does hold of it? What does he do with the Tosik of Machumir Kachabidach? That's to tell you that when does he get an assistance? We'll call it like tuition assistance. He gets some help if he, let's say, gave the value of a person to the base of Mikdash, and the value of that person is supposed to be 50 shekels, according to the formula in the Torah. He has to give 50 shekels. If it's a certain age, I think the highest amount is 50 shekels, right? 50 or 60, I think it's 50. So how much? He says, let's say, though, when he gave the money, when he pledged the money, he knew he was poor. So he figured he'll get off with 2 shekels because he doesn't have a lot of money. Then later on, when the Kohen assessed him, they asked the IRS for his statements and he filed his papers and all that, an audited report of his accounting, they assessed him. They found he had a lot of money. He came into some money all of a sudden. Then he has to pay the full amount. In other words, he has to be poor the entire time. So he has to be in his destitute, no money. If he got money later on, he has to pay up. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. So now we have another kavachomer. Why don't you say when a person gives something to the base of Mikdash, but he needs it, let's say he gave his pillow to the Bedek Abayis, maybe you should give it back to him at night, even though he pledged it because he needs it. That's also being machzor something that the poor person needs. Kavachomer balchov. If you hold by chov, it's not masadrim. Like we had these Tanam over here, our part of Rav Yirmiyah Mishmei, Rav Yaakov Mishmei, Rav Part, Rav Yirmiyah Mishmei Ilpa, who hold it by chov. You're not masadr, so manach by bachov. Ma bachov she'en masadr machzir, but you have to return it as the pasuk says. Hegdish masadr and ein adin shemachzir. Hegdish where you do make a siddur, ein adin shemachzirim. And why do we say Hegdish Samasadrin? We're going according to the Shita. Rabbi Yochanan said that Hegdish Masadrin. So why don't you say that according to Rabbi Yochanan, right? If you make a Sidur for Hegdish, right, you should also be Machzor Hegdish. The pasuk says V'shachav b'salmaso ve'rachacha. You know why? Because the pasuk says in Varim, this pasuk that talks about when you return the item to him. It says, you should return, let's say, his pillow, his blanket at night, and he'll sleep there, and he will bless you. Hegdish for you. So he says, Hegdish doesn't need a bracha. Hegdish doesn't need a bracha, so the Rebbe doesn't need a bracha. So Hegdish doesn't need a bracha, so therefore it doesn't fit into the pasuk. In other words, we are returning it to him. And he will bless you when you return the collateral item to the poor person. He gets to sleep on his pillow. He's going to bless you. But if you give something to Hegdish back, well, if you give something that you pledge something to Hegdish and he gives it back to you, so he's going to bless. Who's going to bless? It's one thing if he blesses the lender, the balchov. But Hegdish doesn't need his bracha. Take more below. Hegdish doesn't need bracha. Even the Rebbeinu Shalom needs a bracha. So why shouldn't Hegdish need a bracha? Based on this pasuk, the end of the pasuk says again. Pasuk says, he will sleep in his garment. He will bless you. That's how the pasuk ends off. Who needs tzedakah? It'll be counted as tzedakah. You had a mitzvah. You gave tzedakah. Hegdish ain't tzedakah. But Hegdish doesn't need a bracha of tzedakah. Doesn't need tzedakah. Doesn't need to give. Hegdish doesn't need to give tzedakah. You need to give tzedakah. It'll be for you counted for tzedakah. But Hegdish doesn't need it. So Hegdish is excluded from the idea of returning. Ashkrei. Now the same question that we're discussing, that we've been discussing. We have a machlokas now between. Not only is our machlokas whether Hegdish make a siddur for Hegdish between Rabbi Yochanan and the first rabbis there, Rabbi Yaakov Mishmei Rav Pan, Rabbi Mishmei Ilfa. There's also machlokas whether do you make a siddur, do you make an assistance, an arrangement for a borrower who doesn't have money. From our mission, we said the Tanakh holds what you do make a siddur because you got to always return it to him. It's more than a siddur. You got to give him back his pillow forever till he can pay you back. It's not limited to 30 days. And on the days, we also said yesterday that you do make a siddur. We had the first opinion here was that there's no siddur for the balchov. Do we make it or not? So that's the question. So here we have another psak. Ashkei Rabba Barahur. Rabba found Eliyahu, the Kohen basic forest. Eliyahu Navi was in the basic forest Shalavikam, a Goyish cemetery. He visited a Goyish cemetery. Why was he there? So the Mefarshim say that a guy did a favor for a Jew when he went to help the guy protect him from the demons. That's why he was doing there. Or another opinion that's brought down. That's the opinion. Yoda says another opinion that's brought down The Maral says that because we're going to see how the story develops. He was there in order to make this story happen. What happened? Rabba Ravua, who was the Rabba found he came upon Eliyahu was in the basic forest. Amalei, so he asked him this kasha. Eliyahu knew how to pass in Shiloh. Amalei, we have this question. We've had this Gemara now for a day and a half now. We've had this question. Do you make a siddur for a borrower who can't pay back, doesn't have money, and you took his pledge, even after you return it to him, or even if you didn't, do you keep giving it back to him forever or not, like the Tanakama? Or even like the Shmuel, after 30 days, when you sell it, do you make a siddur for him? Amalei, Gomer Micha Micha Merech. He holds, yes, you do learn the Gzeir Shava. That's what Eliyahu said. You pass me Gav Erech Siv in Machu Merkecha. There it says in Machu Merkecha. We dash Yehu Merkecha. Make him live. In other words, sustain him the way according to your assessment. Gav V'chol Ksiv Ki Yamocha Chicha. There it also says Ki Yamocha Chicha. That's not the pasuk I said before. The pasuk in Shmo. So you see it's in Vayikra. That's the pasuk in Vayikra that talks about. Where's the pasuk? Here we have it.
Lamed Hey.
I quoted it yesterday. I'm just looking for the exact pasuk.
Chaf Hey Lamed Hey Chet.
Oh, Chaf Hey. Okay, it's not the same parsha that I was looking at. Okay. Yeah. Here it is. Yeah. Okay, so that's the pasuk that yeah. So that's the pasuk of so that's the Gzeir Shava. It says by Erechin it says Imachu Me'erkecha, and here it says Kiyamochachicha. So he learns the Gzeir Shava. So he learns like the Tanakama. The Eliyahu Navi learned like the Tanakama. And that you do make an arrangement for a borrower as well. And you go, Darshan's Gemara, like we asked at the beginning of today's daf, and Eliyahu said, yes, you do. Okay, that was one question that Rav Baruch posed to Eliyahu Navi, and he passed in that way. Okay, now when I'm at days, he asked him this question. The Mishnah says in Trumas that you're not allowed to give Truma when you're naked. You're not allowed to separate Truma from your flocks. You have to put on clothes. Don't do it when you're naked. Okay? How do you know you shouldn't do that? He says, what's the source for that? When you talk to Hashem, when you bless Hashem, there shouldn't be any nakedness there. You shouldn't make a bracha in front of a naked person. And certainly if you're naked, you shouldn't do that. There should be no erva when you bless Hashem. Now when you give truma, you have to make a bracha. You make a bracha. So by bracha. So that's the question. Since in other words, it's not because the etzem giving the truma, you shouldn't be naked there. But when you make a bracha, you have to make a bracha when you give truma. So therefore, yes. Tosfos even says that Menayim the Aram Shalotim. Tosfos says he could have said Menayim Shlo Yivarech. The Bishosh Torah ain't osir el b'shas bracha. It's not osir when you give the truma. It's osir when you make the bracha. Shabracha is osir levarach shu aram. The Mishnah says when you're armed, you shouldn't give truma because you're going to make a bracha. So he asked it that way. But the truth is, how do you know you shouldn't make a bracha while you're naked? He asked him that question, and he answered l'rebacha. Okay, so he answered him these two questions. Amar lei. So then Rabba Baruch turned to Eliyahu and he said, "Listen, aren't you a Kohen? Left Kohen? Aren't you a Kohen?" As we have a drasha that who was Eliyahu? He was really Pinchas. Pinchas was a Kohen. By Pinchas it says by Kano es Kinasi, and by Eliyahu it says Kano Kinesi. So learn out that Kohen, that he was a Kohen. He was like the spiritual, after Pinchas Gilgal of Pinchas. So he says, if you're a Kohen, what are you doing in the base of Mikdash? Amalei Lav Kohen Humar. Aren't you a Kohen? My time a Kohen. What are you doing in the cemetery? My time a Kohen Mar basic verse. If you're a Kohen, what are you doing in the cemetery? Amalei Lo Masni Mar Taras. Did you not learn Seder Taharos? Really, he's talking about Mesech Taharos, but it means the whole Seder Taharos. Why? Because in Taharos, the Tanya we learn, in other words, a goy is metame if you touch him, right? Like an animal, you touch him. But the ohel, he's not metame. Why? Because the Pasuk Shenemer says, "Ve'etena." Hashem said, "I will give my sheep, so marasi, the flock of my pasture, Adam, a person. In other words, I will give you. You are my flock. Who is Adam? Atem Adam. I'm sorry. Betain Soni Samarasi Adam Atem. You are called Adam. Atem korim adam. You were called adam, be'enav v'kam korim adam, not adam. How do we know that a person is matami ba'oel? How do you know that if you go to a funeral, you don't touch the dead body? You're not one of the pallbearers, but you attend the funeral. You're in the same ohel as the person. Because it says adam kiyamus ba'ohel. Based on that, who's adam? Who is the person who is matami ba'ohel? Adam. Only the Jews are called adam, not goyim, as this pasuk says. V'atein soni tzamarasi adam atem. You are called adam. And in other words, he says, you know why I'm allowed to be in the kever of a base of a goyish kever? Because goyim are not matami ba'ohel. I'm not touching anybody. Not matami ba'ohel. Haven't you learned that? Now, two before we get to the answer. Number one, so the bottom Tosas points out that the second to the bottom Tosas, that's a good kasha. He has kasha. If he was a Kohen, how is he coming? How did he come into the Machaya to provide the dead child of the Almana? If he was a dead, if he's a Kohen and there was a dead kid there, the answer is he knew that he was going to be able to survive him, and therefore, because of Pikuach Nefesh, he was allowed to go in, not because he was considered alive already. But since it's Pikuach Nefesh, he had to save his life. And therefore he was allowed to go into Mitame, even though he was a Kohen, assuming that he was Pinchas and he was a Kohen. But the last also says, this price that we just quoted, that Goyish or Kefer farmer not Mitame Ba'ol, is not actually a mission, it's not even a price, it's a Tosefta. But he said, but the point was that Eliel sort of ranked out Rav Barhua, and he said to him, hey, haven't you learned Taharas? You're asking me, what am I doing in a basic forest of Goyim? Goyim farmer not matami ba'oel. Don't you know that? So he answered him, Amalei ba'arbala matzina. I'm not even able to finish the 4 regular starim that are that for the halachas that we have today, right? The shisa matzina. So you expect me to learn the other 2, which are not nogayat in the chutz la'aretz. So what do you mean? What are you saying? What do you expect me to learn everything? I can't learn everything. I'm not even able to cover the 4 starim where they're knowing today. Now, what are the 4 starim that are knowing today? So Rashi points out they are, of course, moed, right? Psachim, Shabbos, etc. And of course, Nashim apply today. Karbanas, Kachim are knowing today. Why? Even though you don't bring the Karbanas, but if you learn Kachim, if you learn Mesech, like we say every day, Karbanas, and we learn Karbanas, it's as if you brought the Karbanas. So that's why we learn Karbanas today. So those are effectively knowing today. And Nezikin. Very interesting that Rashi calls Nezikin Yeshuos. He says Mesech, Seder Moed, Yeshuos, Nashim, and then he adds on Kachim because we learn Kachim. Calls it Yeshuos. It's called Yeshuos because it says Chosin Yeshuos Chachma B'das. The pasuk says in Yeshaya. That we say that I think Matzah Shabbos we say so Yeshuos is, and he doesn't call it Nezikin, he calls it Yeshuos. It's called that because Yeshuos is like the main thing. The Chachma V'das, Nezikin is really what we're learning now. Bab Mציעא, Bab Basra, Bab Kama, the main Bab Kama. That's the real Chachma V'das. That's the real the real rules of living are in those. Taharos and Zraim is only Noeg, not Noeg in Chutz La'aretz. So therefore, I know Chutz La'aretz v'chein Taharos. So therefore, he didn't learn that they were in bubble, so they didn't concentrate so much on that. So he said, you're asking me about Taharos. I don't really know that. I'm like, I'm not able to learn. I'm able to learn 6. I don't know those halachas. I didn't know that you're allowed to be in a kever in a goyish cemetery. Amalei, so he said about why haven't you learned those? Amalei the chekele milsa. I didn't know, I'm poor, it's hard, it's very hard for me to learn. So what did he do? Elio, and then took him Davra, he led him, he brought him into Gan Eden, he brought Rav into Amalei, you're poor, take off your robe, Safi, gather, Shkol, Mehani Tarfi, gather up and take from these leaves in Gan Eden. These leaves in Gan Eden who had a tremendous, beautiful smell, etc., they were worth a lot. Take them. Safasi gathered, Shakali took him, Kiavinafik, when he was leaving Gan Eden with Elio, I guess he let him out. Shama, he heard a voice say, Man ka'achal alme karava baravua. Who is eating up his share in the next world? In other words, he took him into Gan Eden, and he was taking a share of the beauty of Gan Eden. He says, who is eating up his Gan Eden now, like Rav Baravua? In other words, you're eating away from your share in the next world now. Nafat, so he scattered them, he threw him down. And he didn't want to take the leaves with him because he says, why should I take my share of Olam Haba? I'm going to lose my share in Olam Haba for later on. So he didn't take them with him. Even so, he had put them in his robe, in his coat, whatever he had put him in there. Sachat glima recha, and the coat had the robe had absorbed the great smell of these leaves. And Zavne, and he was able to sell the coat, the tracer arfei for $12,000 dollars. And he split it among his sons-in-law. Understand? So that's what he was able to do. Now you might say, based on this of Eliyahu Navi, really that's really a machlokas lahalacha whether goyish cemetery, goyish bodies are metame ba'ohel. And our minhag is the psak halacha, we don't go into goyish cemeteries either. In other words, can a kohen go into a goyish cemetery? L'maisa, we don't go into goyish cemeteries. There's other issues there today too. Who knows who's Jewish and who's not, who's buried where, and all that. But even if you know for sure that it's a goyish cemetery, that's the old thing that they put the goyim built the Arabs put their cemetery right outside Shar Rachman, right? This is because the Mashiach is supposed to come that way. Eliyahu Navi won't be able to come in. It's coming. They didn't know that the goyim didn't know that their dvarim are not metami ba'oel. L'maisa, the psak halach is today that a kohen should not go into any cemetery. But there's a machlokas about that, and it could be that the real psak is that Eliyahu Navi said, Eliyahu himself said it. Even as a kohen, he didn't say I'm not a kohen. He said the halach is that a kohen is not metame ba'oel. Pardon? Of course, I'm talking about a kohen. Can a kohen can't go to a cemetery or attend a funeral? What about that of a goy? So I'm saying Eliyahu said he could go, but that's not the psak l'maisa. We're not knowing that way. Im ish anihu, right? Im ish anihu, the pasuk says if he's a poor person. In this case, this is back in our pasuk in Dvarim, the pasuk in Dvarim, where we talk about bachutz tamod and all that. So it says that Mish anihu, if he's a poor person, you shouldn't sleep in his pledge. Let's say you took a coat from her or a pillow, you shouldn't sleep in it. But you're allowed to sleep in a rich person's garment or pillow, whatever. If you sleep in his pillow or you wear his garment, that's ribbit, right? You lent him $100. He's got to give you back $100. Meanwhile, you're sleeping in his coat. That's like ribbit. Yeah, I muted him. I don't know what happened. Yeah, I hear it also. Yeah, mute everybody, and they're coming back in. I don't know what. I think everybody's mute. Yeah, everybody's mute now. Maybe they came back in. Okay. So thank you. So it says, I skipped that. You're allowed to sleep in a rich person's pillow or coat, whatever. How can you do that? That's forbid. My comer. This is what it means. If you took the pledge, again, we're taking a pledge now. Bezdin took the pledge after the man couldn't pay it back. Right? If he's a poor person, if he's a poor person, you shouldn't sleep while his pillow is with you. But if he's a rich person, you can sleep with his pillow still in your possession. Doesn't mean you could sleep on his pillow or his coat or whatever the guard thing is. That would be rabid. Just means you don't have to return it. Tana Rabbana. This goes on with what the Mishnah said and what the Gemara has been saying. If you lend money to him, you're not allowed to go in and take a collateral from him when he doesn't pay back again. Like the example I gave, but you lent the money for 6 months. After 6 months, he doesn't pay back. You're not allowed to go in and take a mashkin from him into his house. Also, if let's say you did take it or Bezin took it, you don't have to give it back. You don't have to give it back. Why not? But you're over on these 6 averos that we talked about, depending on if it's a day garment, a night garment, whatever. Right? So my comment, what do we mean by that? What do we mean that you're over in all these averos that we said? I said 6. I think the 6. When I said 6, I think we were talking there about workers, day workers. And we're not talking about mixed. It's not 6, but you're over on these averos over here of not returning it. Okay, you're over on these averos. That it says in the pasuk in Paraklaf Dal, in Dvarim. Right. So what's going on over here? What do you mean? He says if you're lending money, you're not allowed to go take in this mashkin without permission, without the peasant. And then when you do get it, but you're over choshem asaylo. What do we mean by that? What do you mean you're over it? You're not allowed. You don't have to return it. So Gemara says, my company, Tani, Ein Chayv Lachshel Avod, Hadatani, over Choshem Masel, over Choshem Hashav Tashablo, Tishkavavoto, don't sleep in his with his garment, don't sleep on his pillow, you have to return to him, Abo Hashem Shishivenu, all these rules. What are you talking about? My comment, Amar Sheshis, we know if you lend him money, you're not allowed to go in after 6 months and take something from his house as collateral. If, let's say, Bezdin did it, then you do have to give it back to him. It means this, not ein chayiv lachso. If you did it, chayiv lachso, but over chosh masayelo aseifa. And what does it mean? You're over. You're over if you don't return it. That's what it means. And if you don't return it, you're over on these words. Rava says you can learn it a little bit differently. And as I say, he doesn't argue halachically, he's just explaining it differently than Rav Sheshes. Rava Marachikamer. You're not allowed to go in and take something in without permission. The imeshkano, and if you went in with the bezin and took it, chayiv lach, so you have to give it to him. The medvar mamur, when is that said? Listen carefully. So when you took the mashkin from him, not the time that you lent him the money, after 6 months, right? After 6, you lent him the money January 1st, and you told him by July 1st he has to return the money. He doesn't return the money then. You had bezin go in or take the item from him. Then you have to return it to him as necessary. Give it to him the pillow at night, the day garments during the day, etc. But let's say at the beginning of the loan, January 1st, I said, listen, you want $100? You got to give me something. You give me your shirt. Give me your shirt as a mashkin. And he gave it to you willingly. He brought it to you. You didn't go into his house and grab it. I said, you want $100 loan? Give me a mashkin. You have collateral? Give me some collateral. Then all these rules don't apply. Then that doesn't apply. Also, you're not to give it back. You have to give it back at night during the day. You don't. That all that rules doesn't apply. What does it mean? You're over on these things. Aresha on the first part, when you took a mashkin from him, also in July after he couldn't pay back, and you sent Bezdin in to take it from him, and then you have to return. Then the pasuk says Bezdin came in and took it. You got to give him back to his pillow at night and his clothing during the day. But if the deal was up front, I lent you money, $100, and in return I said, I'm only giving you the money if you give me a collateral. You gave me collateral, then all these rules don't apply. That's what he explains here. And therefore, so when you open on the ratio in the first case, where you took the collateral, shalom b'shasav also in July, not in January. Tani Rav Shizbi, Kamed Rav. Listen carefully. The pasuk in Shmos that talks about right when he's poor, if you lend him money, it says in kesef talvas amiyas animoch, right? You have to give him back his clothing. Ad bo hashemesh tishivenulo. Now ad bo hashemesh tishivenulo sounds right. Zuksus laila. This is something he wears at night. Now ad bo hashemesh tishivenulo. It sounds like you have to give him this during the day. Ad bo hashemesh until sundown. He can keep it. Ad bo hashemesh tishivenulo. So the Gemara first says, Rav Shizbi said, this is Ksus Laila. So Rav Shizbi said, I have a brisa. I don't understand this brisa. The brisa says, Ad bo hashemesh all day. Rashi says, Baboker tishivenelo, and it should be with him until sundown. Keep this in sundown. This is speaking about a night garment. A night garment during the day. What does he need it for? Then the pasuk in Dvarim says, Hashev tashiblo esavo, return to him the pledge, Kabo hashemesh, at sundown, give it back to him, Zuksus Yom. So it sounds pretty strange. The first pasuk in Shmos is mashma the what? That the garment that he wears at night, you should keep with him during the day. And the second pasuk says that give him back at sundown, give him back his day garments. So what's going on? Amalei. So Rava said to him, Diyamama Balayla Lumli, why does he need the day garment at night? As is mashma from the second pasuk. And the first pasuk, Delilah b'yamama lamli. Why does he need the night garment during the day? Amalei Ismaias, or she said, should I erase that brisa? Should I erase it? It doesn't make sense. Amalei lo, don't erase it. This is what it means. When he says the night garment, he doesn't mean the garment that he wears at night. It means the garment that you take at night from him. And the day garment doesn't mean the day things that he wears during the day. It means the night garment that you're entitled to take during the day. What's the garment that you have to give him during the day? It's the day garment that you're entitled to take at night. That garment you shall leave with him today. What's the garment that you have to give him back at sundown? That's the night garment that you're allowed to take during the day. That's how you explain the price. Let's say you took a mashkin, mashkano, umes. You took a mashkin from him, right? and you return it to him, let's say the pillow, you return to him at night, and the guy died, show it to me, I'll get me banav. Even though it's metaltalin, you're allowed to remove it from his children. Normally, when a man dies and he owes you money, you can't take metaltalin from his children if he didn't have any karka. Presumably, he didn't have karka here. He says mashkano, and you gave it back to him. Lo b'lacha shehev shel and he died. You could take it from his kids because it doesn't have halacha like metaltalin. Metaltalin is not meshubat al bachol, but over here, since you took it as a mashkin, it's yours, and he's just deposited it with him. You understand? Like if a man, you say if a man owes you money and he dies, you can't collect from his kids. But let's say you left a pikadon in his safe, right? It's yours. It's a pikadon. It's simply a deposit. That's yours. You can take it back. And this is a deposit. Meisvei. Rav Kashan on Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Meir says, he's like this. Since you take it as a mashkin, why would you return it to him at night? What kind of question is that? That doesn't make sense. Rav Meir said, can't mean that. You can't mean that. Hashem said, give it back to him at night. Give it back to him during the day. What do you mean, Ella? You have to read the brisa this way. Rav Meir, since you give it back to him anyway, what are you taking it back from every day, right? If you after, let's say, according to Shimuli, after 30 days, or according to Tanakh, always you give him back his pillow at night, right? So why do you take it back during the day? Come next day, you're gonna have to return to him at night anyway, and the next night you're gonna have to return. Why do you keep taking it back from him? Because if you take it as a mashkin, you keep it in your possession, you have it as a mashkon. Then, if Shemitah comes along, the end of Shemitah comes along, Shemitah doesn't knock off a loan that there's a mashkan against it because it's considered as if it's collected already. Below Yasa Metalton, it's a bana. And another reason is it won't be considered Metalton because you took it back. If it would be there, if you leave it with the kids, it's Metalton. Here it's Mashmalton. Time but the harder mashkan is mashma. Why is it not? Why isn't it considered Metalton with his kids that don't have to pay it back if he died? Because he took it back. But if he didn't take it back, if he didn't take it back as a mashkon, it's mashma. Here, Rabbi Yochanan, what Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Yochanan says, if you took it as a mashkon and you gave it back to him at night and he died on the pillow, right, the kids still have to give it back to you. Here it's mashma, only if it was a mashkon at that time. The time of the mashkon, he took it back. Why do you take it back each day? So that if Shmias comes along, Shmias should knock it off. If the end of Shmias comes along, let's say, when does the end of Shmias come along? It knocks off the mashkin at the end of the last day of El, right before Rosh Hashanah. As long as you're holding it, so Shmias doesn't knock it off. And also, you take it back, so it shouldn't be metalton with his kids. If it's in the hands of the kids, it's mashma. When he dies, then they don't have to return it. That's not what Rabbi Yochanan said. Why isn't it considered metalton? Because he took it back. But if he didn't take it back, if it was in the kids' hands at the time that the guy died, mashma that they wouldn't have to return it. It's Kashan Rabbi Yochanan. The price didn't make sense anyway. Rav Meir said, why, if you have to take it as a mashkin, why do you return it? Because the Torah said return it. You had to change it anyway. So change it some more. He explained it this way. Since you have to give it back at night, you give him back the pillow every night. Why'd you take it in the first place? Not why do you take it of it? Once you take it in the first place, Rabbi Yochanan says, even if at the time that the guy died, it was in the dead Lova's possession, still they have to return it. He said, but the question is this: since you have to return it anyway, why do you even bother taking it if you got to return it anyway? That's what it says. Shvius shouldn't take it off. In other words, even if at the time that Shvius came along, it's mashma that you returned, that it was in the hands of the Lova, but since it was your mashkin, simply deposited with the poor people, the Shvius doesn't knock it off. And if the guy dies, it's not considered metalton, you can collect it. All right, so tomorrow's daf is Tanur Rabbanan. Actually, we started, I think, from 4 lines on the bottom of Beis. It's on the podcast. It's not the quality of the podcast is not quite as good because it's from 15 years ago, not 7.5 years ago. On Sunday, Mirz Hashem, we're going to pick it up on Kuf Tesayin on the 15th line. Ahu Gavra. There's a story that starts. The end of the 15th line is Ahu Gavra. That's what we'll start from on Sunday in Mirz Hashem. Shabbat Shalom L'Kulam.
Shabbat Shalom. Beautiful.